You ever get that feeling where you convince yourself something's perfect just because you need it to be? That was me and Elise with Brookhaven. We were tired of the traffic, of the sirens every night, of neighbors on the other side of paper-thin walls. It was like living in a shoebox with stress taped to every corner. So yeah, when we found this listing for a place tucked behind a tree-lined road in Brookhaven, it felt like a sign. It was one of those old real estate photos, overexposed, badly cropped, but even then we could tell the yard was massive, and there were woods. Actual woods. Like the kind kids in old movies run into. We imagined a dog, maybe a couple of kids down the line. A quiet kind of life. Clean air. Some space to exhale. I remember standing out front the day we moved in, keys in hand, looking at this creaky porch and thinking, yeah, this is it. It was quiet, almost too quiet, but we brushed that off. I told myself it was just the adjustment. That city noise leaves a kind of ringing in your head you don't notice until it's gone. We dove into unpacking like we were racing some invisible clock, like if we settled fast enough the house would wrap its arms around us and say, "You're safe here." But now, looking back, I don't know. Maybe we were forcing it. Maybe we saw what we wanted to see and ignored the weird little things, the shadows that felt a little too still, the way the woods didn't quite feel like background. I guess what I'm saying is, we thought we were starting something, but it's possible we were stepping into something else entirely. It was late, like the kind of late where even the fridge hum feels too loud. Maybe the third night after we moved in, we'd just gotten the last of the boxes into their corners, and Elise had finally passed out upstairs. I remember just lying there, eyes open in the dark, not thinking about anything in particular, just kind of absorbing the stillness. That kind of quiet where even your own heartbeat feels intrusive. And then I heard it. At first I thought it was just something mechanical, the pipes settling, maybe a neighbor's TV echoing across the field, but it kept going. Music, distant, but not that distant. It didn't have the clarity of a modern speaker either. It was warped, like it was crawling through static, like it had come through too many layers of dust and bad tape. I sat up. I don't know why, but my first instinct wasn't fear, just confusion. I remember tilting my head like that would somehow help me hear better. The tune, it wasn't familiar, but it had that old-timey bounce to it. Something from another era. I thought maybe someone nearby had a thing for retro playlists or left their radio on by accident. But here's what stuck with me, and I didn't even admit this to Elise at the time. It felt aimed at us, like it was being played for an audience of exactly two. I walked to the back window, cracked it a little. The music got clearer, but not louder, if that makes sense. And it felt close, closer than the tree line, closer than I wanted it to be. Still, I shook it off, told myself it was just one of those country town quirks. Everyone's got their little eccentricities, right? I tried to believe that. The thing about trying to rationalize something strange is that it works until it doesn't. That second night the music came back. Only this time it wasn't whispering from somewhere in the dark. It was louder, not blasting, but just enough to feel intentional, like it was saying, "No, you're not imagining me." Same off-kilter vibe as before. That vintage kind of sound, warbly and grainy like it was dragged through decades. The kind of song that would feel goofy in daylight but somehow in that moment made my skin crawl. It was like someone had found the precise frequency to unsettle me. I stared out the back window again, and this time I saw it, something small sitting dead center in the yard, just sitting there, like it belonged. At first I assumed it was a piece of trash, maybe a cardboard box or something that blew in from the road. But it hadn't been there earlier. I was sure of that. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside before I could talk myself out of it. The moment I hit the grass, I knew something was off. Not just because of the music, but because of how wrong the night felt. Too still, too watched. When I got closer, I realized it was a radio. One of those old tabletop ones with dials and a thick antenna, humming that same strange song like it had been playing all night. It wasn't buried or half hidden. It was placed there, like someone wanted me to find it. I reached down, barely touched the handle, and suddenly I froze. There was something in the woods, a shape, or maybe three, I don't know. I still can't say for sure what I saw, but I know I wasn't alone out there. I didn't want to be that person calling the cops over a radio and some creepy music, but after what I saw or think I saw, just standing there at the edge of the woods, there wasn't much choice. Elise was pale and quiet when I came back inside, and for the first time neither of us tried to downplay it. I think we both knew something shifted. They actually showed up pretty quick, two of them, young guys, boots muddy before they even hit the grass. One of them picked up the radio with a gloved hand like it was some roadside junk. The other just kind of looked around, casual, like he already had a story in his head about what this was. They asked a few questions. Did we see anyone? Did we have cameras? Were there signs of a break-in? We answered, but the whole time I could feel it, that undercurrent of disbelief, like they were walking through a checklist, already convinced we were overreacting. Maybe we were, I don't know, but it didn't feel like that to me. They did a quick sweep with their flashlights along the tree line. Nothing too deep, just enough to say they looked. No prints, no tracks. The woods swallowed their light like it didn't even matter. They took the radio with them, said they'd look into it, whatever that means, and then they left. The silence after they drove off was louder than anything that had happened. I remember walking back inside and shutting the door and realizing it didn't make a difference. It still felt like someone, or something, was here. Like the walls weren't as solid as they'd seemed. Not broken into, exactly, but breached. Like whatever this was, we'd already let it get too close. It showed up on a Tuesday, I think. One of those late afternoons where the light hits the yard in that soft, harmless way that makes everything look calmer than it is. I had just walked out to check the mailbox. Wasn't expecting anything, just routine. And there it was, a plain, unsealed envelope. No stamp, no writing, just there. Like someone had walked right up to the box and slipped it in by hand. Not in a hurry either. It was too perfectly placed for that. I remember hesitating before opening it, which sounds stupid now, but something about it just felt wrong, too quiet, too deliberate, and then I pulled out the photo. It wasn't glossy or professionally printed. It was grainy, low-res, probably from an old camera or even a cheap phone, but I recognized the angle immediately. It was our backyard. The shed, the rust-stained lawn chair we hadn't moved yet, and trees. Lots of trees, thick, dark, too close. Whoever took it had been standing in them, watching us. I flipped it over and found the message scrawled in faded black marker. "Keep your lights off." That's when it hit me. It wasn't a threat, exactly. It was something worse. It was calm, like whoever wrote it didn't need to intimidate us. Like they already knew how this was going to go. No punctuation, no drama, just an instruction, like they were sure we'd follow it. And the part that's been gnawing at me since? We didn't even question whether we should. That night, we left the lights off. Not because we were told to, at least that's what I keep telling myself, but because some part of us already knew it was safer that way. I hate that. It crept in slowly. Not all at once, not with a bang, just little things. Small shifts in how we moved through the house, how we looked over our shoulders without meaning to. Elise, she started flipping on lights in every room, even when she wasn't using them. Kitchen, hallway, bathroom, all glowing for no reason. She said it made her feel safer. I didn't argue. I was doing my own thing by then, checking the doors, the windows, the garage latch, then checking again. I'd do a full loop before bed, sometimes twice. There was no big event after the photo, no dramatic return, but that almost made it worse. The silence felt pointed, like something had stepped back just enough to make us feel crazy. I kept hearing things at night, tiny creaks, soft thuds, the kind of noises every house makes when it breathes. But they didn't feel harmless anymore. They felt watched, not random, almost like replies. We'd sit in bed, both pretending to scroll through our phones or read, but neither of us was really doing anything, just listening, always listening. I remember once the heater kicked on, and Elise flinched like a gun went off. The house changed, or maybe we changed, and the house just started reflecting it back at us. Either way, it didn't feel solid anymore. The walls felt thinner, like they weren't meant to keep anything out. The air felt different too, like it had weight, like it was carrying something. Sometimes I'd catch myself holding my breath, trying to hear what wasn't there. And sometimes, in the silence between sounds, I'd swear there was something else, like a presence, or maybe just an expectation. It's hard to explain, but the worst part was, I couldn't tell if it was all in my head. I still can't. It's been a few weeks now. We've gone to work. We've made dinner. We've even laughed a little. From the outside, it probably looks like things are back to normal. But they're not. Not really. Nothing's happened since the photo. Not in the obvious sense. No more music. No figures in the woods. No packages or notes. Just quiet. And somehow that's worse. I keep my phone on the nightstand now, screen facing up, camera shortcut ready, just in case. I don't know what I think I'll catch. Sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and just stare out the window for too long. The woods are still there. They don't move, don't make a sound, but there's something about the way they just sit, like they're waiting for something, or maybe someone. Every so often I'll catch myself running through it all again, replaying each night in my head like a broken loop. The music, the radio, that damn photo. I think I'm looking for a pattern, some kind of logic to stitch it all together. But the more I dig into it, the more it unravels. None of it adds up. There's no clear motive, no person, no explanation that sticks. Just fragments. I've thought about telling someone else. Like really telling them. A friend, a coworker. But how do you explain something like this without sounding unwell? Without sounding like maybe you've been breathing in too much isolation? The strange thing is, I'm not even sure what I want anymore. Closure? Proof? For it to start again just so I know I didn't imagine all of it. Or maybe, I'm afraid it never really stopped. Maybe it's just waiting for us to let our guard down. You know how people say neighbors don't talk to each other anymore? Not here. Within an hour of the moving truck pulling out, I had cookies from the lady 2 doors down, a business card from the guy who works in HVAC, and a solid 15-minute chat with the older couple next door. I didn't expect that kind of reception, especially since I'd moved in alone. No family, no roommates, just me and the idea of starting fresh. Honestly, it helped ease the nerves. The house itself couldn't have asked for better. Waterfront, clean lines, just enough space. The kind of place I'd imagined for years. And the real selling point, the canal in the back. I've got a boat, and having it docked right in the backyard, no brainer. But even as I signed the papers, even when I stood in that empty living room for the first time, there was something I couldn't shake. That house across the canal. I noticed it during the tour, peeling white paint, a busted lawn chair lying sideways on the deck, vines climbing the porch like they were trying to pull the place under. I figured maybe it was just a vacation home or something no one used much, but it felt wrong, not in a dramatic way, just off, like it wasn't just neglected, it was abandoned on purpose, forgotten for a reason. And the worst part, it faced me directly. From my kitchen window, my deck, even upstairs in the bedroom, I could see straight into their backyard, which meant they could see into mine. No privacy, no blind spots, just water and wide open views. I told myself I'd get used to it, that it wasn't a big deal, but I kept looking over there. It was kind of eerie, actually. I'd glance over every night just out of habit, I guess. You notice things when they're always the same, like the way the porch light across the canal never flicked on. No motion lights, no lamp glow in the windows, nothing. Just a big box of shadows. I chalked it up to being a vacation home, maybe owned by someone who only came down for summer fishing or the holidays. The neighborhood felt a bit like that in places. Quiet during the week, livelier on weekends. But then, one night, something changed. I was in my bedroom, about to pull the blinds shut, and there it was, a soft, amber glow bleeding through one of the back windows of that house. It caught me off guard. Not bright, not flickering, just steady and warm, like someone had turned on a living room lamp. And standing in front of it was someone, a man. I could make out the silhouette clearly, framed in the light. He wasn't moving, just standing by the glass door like he'd been there a while. Maybe watching the water, maybe watching me. He looked older. I couldn't see his face, not really, but he had that kind of posture you don't forget. Tall, motionless, with what looked like a head full of gray hair. And the way he stood, it wasn't casual. It was deliberate, like he wanted to be seen but didn't want to do anything about it. I kept staring, frozen in the half-pulled blinds. I don't even know how long. A minute? 2? Eventually, I just stepped away and shut them the rest of the way. But that image stuck with me. The light, the figure, the feeling I was the one being observed. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just one of those weird timing things, like maybe I happened to look over at the exact moment he was stretching his legs or getting some fresh air. But then it kept happening. Night after night, same spot, same figure, standing there like a statue, backlit in that soft orange glow, never sitting, never stepping out onto the deck, just still watching. It's strange how quickly something like that gets under your skin. The first couple of nights I laughed it off, told myself I was being dramatic. But then I started checking the window without even realizing it, glancing across the canal before bed, when I got up to grab a drink, sometimes even in the middle of the night if I woke up randomly. And more often than not, he was there. What got me wasn't just the consistency, it was the lack of variation. He never moved, never turned away, never did anything. No phone in hand, no book, not even a cigarette, just standing, looking outward, at the water, at me. I don't know. The part that started eating at me was how I never saw him arrive or leave. No lights switching on or off. No shadow crossing a hallway. He was just there or not, like flipping a switch. I found myself staying inside more. Even during the day, I'd feel exposed on the back patio, like I was performing for some silent audience. There was no proof he was watching me specifically, but I felt it, in my chest, in the way my skin prickled when I stepped outside. It started to feel like I was the one trespassing, in my own yard. I wasn't even thinking about anything unusual that morning, just needed the hose attachment, the kind of errand you do without even waking up all the way. But the second I stepped into the yard, I noticed the door swinging gently in the breeze, half open like someone had left in a hurry. It stopped me cold. I always lock that shed, partly because the latch is so old it barely clicks shut, and partly because that's where I keep all my expensive stuff, drill, mower, you name it. I even added a secondary latch myself just to be sure. But there it was, unlocked. No sign of force. No busted lock or splintered wood, just open. Like someone had turned the key, walked in, and walked back out. At first, I thought maybe I'd messed up. Maybe I'd been distracted last time I was in there. But when I stepped inside, I knew I hadn't. Things had been moved, not in a chaotic way, but with purpose. My rake was leaning against the opposite wall, upside down. A toolbox was slid open by just an inch. A small box of screws had been dumped out onto the workbench, like someone was searching for something and didn't find it. Nothing was missing, though. At least, nothing obvious. That somehow made it worse. This wasn't theft. This was curiosity, or intent, and it didn't feel random. It felt directed, focused. That was the moment it stopped being about the house across the canal. It wasn't just something I could ignore from behind a set of blinds. It had crossed the line, literally, physically, onto my property, into my space, and I had no idea who or what was behind it. It was late, close to midnight. I just turned off the TV and was about to head up to bed when I heard it. That creak, the wooden boards on the back deck flexing under weight. Not wind, not some animal. Footsteps, slow, deliberate pacing just outside the sliding door. My body locked up instantly. I don't think I even breathed. I crept up the stairs hoping to get a view from the bedroom window, but I couldn't see anything through the darkness. My deck light hadn't been triggered, and just as I was leaning forward, trying to catch a glimpse of anything, it happened. The crash. It wasn't just loud, it was violent, the kind of sound that's so sudden, so sharp, your mind takes a second to register it. Glass. It was glass. Shattering, splintering, falling in fragments onto the floor below. I felt my stomach tighten like I'd been punched. I didn't think. I just grabbed the first thing I saw in the kitchen, a heavy flashlight, and moved toward the noise, heart pounding in my throat. The back window was completely shattered. The one above the radiator, shards scattered everywhere. Right there in the middle of the floor was a brick. No note, no markings, just cold, heavy stone. I stood there, frozen in my own kitchen, trying to listen for movement. Nothing. No footsteps. No door creaking. Whoever had done it was already gone. Or maybe they'd never planned to come in at all. That's what hit me later. This wasn't a break-in, it was a message. Whoever it was, they didn't want anything. They just wanted to show me how easy it would be. And now I knew it too. They showed up quick. 2 officers, quiet and professional. I led them straight to the broken window, explained what I heard, what I saw. When they asked if I had any idea who might have done it, I didn't hesitate. I pointed across the canal, told them about the man I'd seen almost every night, told them about the way he watched, told them I was sure it had something to do with him. They listened, nodded. One of them jotted something down while the other radioed it in, said they'd go check it out. They were gone maybe 20 minutes. When they came back, their tone was different, calmer, almost dismissive. They said the house was empty, had been for a while, foreclosed a few months back, previous owner evicted, no utilities running inside, no signs of occupancy. I just stood there, trying to make sense of it. Empty? That didn't track. I'd seen someone, multiple times, always in that back room, standing by the glass, framed in light, watching. I asked if maybe someone was squatting. One of them shrugged, said it was possible, but they didn't find anything tonight. No movement, no footprints, nothing suspicious. That should have made me feel better. It didn't, because now I had no clear direction, no target for my fear, just the growing realization that either someone had been slipping in and out of that house without being seen, or I'd been watching something that shouldn't have been there in the first place. The cops left. I locked the door, sat in the dark kitchen, staring across the water. And the worst part, that yellow glow was back in the window. Same spot, same figure, still, watching. I barely slept that night. My head wouldn't shut off. Every creak in the house made me flinch. Every car that passed made me peek through the blinds, and all I could think about was that window across the canal, that warm glow, that figure just standing there. So when the sun came up, I did something dumb. I crossed the pedestrian bridge at the end of the block and made my way to the other side. The grass was overgrown, brittle under my shoes. The house looked worse up close. Paint curled off the siding. A wind chime hung in silence. The front door was bolted, padlocked like the police said, but around back the door was just sitting there, unlocked, like it had been waiting. I hesitated. I really did, but something made me go in. Just 2 steps. The smell hit first. Damp, rotting wood, mold in the drywall. But there was something else too. Something metallic, bitter. It clung to the back of my throat. The place was stripped. Bare walls, dust-coated floor. Not a single piece of furniture. But it didn't feel empty. It felt like the air had weight. And then I heard it. Above me. A shift. A step. Maybe 2. Not the kind of sound a house makes on its own. Someone was up there. Someone real. Someone heavy. I didn't wait to find out. I backed out so fast I nearly tripped on the threshold, then booked it back to my place without looking back. I haven't returned since. Haven't crossed that bridge again. Most days I keep my blinds shut tight, but sometimes I still glance that way, just to check. And every time, I wonder, was he ever really gone, or did I just stop seeing him? So, I moved into my first house last July. I still can't tell you if it felt like freedom or like someone cut the cord too suddenly. After years of living with Greg, my stepdad, and my mom, you'd think I'd be itching to leave. And I was, kind of. I mean, the man had this habit of getting up 3-4 times a night, pacing like a ghost, looking for his own grave. He was a chronic insomniac, and apparently not shy about sharing that with the whole house, every single night. So yeah, I thought I'd finally get some peace, just quiet. My own walls, my own doors, no one else slamming the bathroom shut at 2 a.m. or boiling water at 3 like it's totally normal. The place I bought isn't even far, 10 minutes from their place, max. That's probably why it didn't feel like some big clean break. More like I had just drifted slightly out of orbit. At first, the silence was kind of perfect. No TV murmuring through the wall, no arguing over who left the hallway light on. But then I started to notice how deep that silence actually went. The kind of quiet where your ears feel like they're adjusting to something, but there's nothing to adjust to. I don't know, maybe I expected to feel different. Like I'd walk through the door and be this new version of myself. But the house didn't welcome me like that. It was just still, like it was waiting. Not in a spooky way, at least. Not yet. Just this sense that I wasn't really alone, even though I definitely was. Funny how I thought the noise was the problem. Turns out silence has its own kind of presence. Greg came by the first few days to help move things in. Carried the heavy stuff, couch, desk, this bulky dresser that should have been left behind, honestly. He does this thing where he acts like he's got somewhere to be even when he doesn't. Fast movements, quick exits. Like helping me settle in was a pit stop. Once he left, it was just me in the house. And that's when the weird part started. Not weird like supernatural, but weird like emotionally scrambled. I had all this space to arrange and decorate, but I kept second-guessing everything. I moved a lamp around 3 times in one afternoon, put up this abstract painting I liked in the store, stared at it too long, and took it right back down. I bought a chair that I thought screamed minimalist and cool, then sat in it and hated how it squeaked. Every room felt like it belonged to someone else, or like no one had ever really lived there. There was this emptiness that didn't feel fresh. It felt paused, like I was walking into the middle of someone else's story and pretending it was mine. And the silence. That crept in fast. Not peaceful silence either. This low, hollow type that buzzed in my ears like they were waiting for a sound that never came. I found myself listening for things that weren't there. Greg's footsteps down the hall. The too loud hum of our old fridge. The faucet he'd always forget to shut off properly. It's strange how much noise you don't realize you're used to until it's just gone. I kept telling myself this was what I wanted. My own place. My own quiet. But the truth is, the quiet felt less like freedom and more like a void I hadn't prepared for. That Sunday night, I still replay it more than I should. It wasn't anything special leading up to it. I'd spent the day rearranging stuff again, scrolling way too long on my phone, trying to convince myself I was tired. But I wasn't. Not really. I felt wired in that weird way where your body's tired but your brain is buzzing, refusing to let go. You know that feeling? Like sleep's just out of reach, mocking you. So I reached for the usual fix, melatonin, maybe even one of those over-the-counter sleep aids I still had stashed in the bathroom drawer. Honestly, I don't remember which I took. I just remember wanting everything to shut off for a while. And for a bit, I think it worked. I must have dozed off. But then something pulled me back up. Not jolted, not startled, just this slow, uneasy surfacing, like being reeled in from deep underwater. It wasn't a dream that woke me. There was no nightmare, no images, just this weight pressing on my chest and this weird sense that something had changed in the room, like a shift in the air I couldn't name. It was too quiet, like unnaturally quiet. No car sounds outside, no floorboard groans from the house settling, not even the wind brushing past the windows like usual. Just nothing. And then I heard it, or I think I did. A sound faint but distinct. It wasn't sharp or loud, but it cut through the silence all the same. Even half asleep, part of me knew it didn't belong. I wasn't awake enough to process it yet, but something deep down in my body, in that primal part of your brain that knows danger before you understand it, yeah, that part flinched. I've tried to tell myself that I imagined it, that I was still groggy, halfway between sleep and wakefulness, and my brain just filled in the blanks. But I know what I heard. It wasn't random. It wasn't a house settling or a tree brushing up against the siding. It was paced, measured, familiar. The sound of someone walking up the stairs slowly, deliberately, one step at a time, each creak spaced out just enough to feel intentional. I knew that rhythm. I'd grown up with it. That heavy, dragging gait that belonged to Greg during his 3 a.m. kitchen pilgrimages. He never could sleep. My brain jumped right back to those nights at my old house without even asking me. For a few seconds, I actually felt safe, like it was just Greg being Greg, and I'd fall back asleep soon. My body relaxed. I even rolled slightly, like I was preparing to drift off again. Then it hit me. This wasn't that house. I wasn't 15 and frustrated in my bedroom anymore. This was my place. No one else was supposed to be here, and Greg wasn't walking those stairs. I remember going still, completely still, like even breathing too loud might give something away. I kept waiting for the sound to stop or repeat or fade, something that would make sense of it. But the house just held its breath with me. I told myself maybe it was just a dream overlapping with reality. You know how sometimes your mind makes things up when you're in that hazy in-between? That's what I tried to believe. But I knew. The sound didn't come from inside my head. It came from inside the house, and I hadn't even made it out of bed yet. I don't even remember deciding to move. One second I was frozen in bed. The next I was on my feet, padding softly toward the hallway like I was being pulled there. I wasn't being brave or logical. I just moved. Maybe part of me needed to prove the sound wasn't real. Maybe that if I turned on the hallway light, everything would snap back into place. Lights on, no one there. Just a creaky old house doing what houses do. But when the light flicked on, it didn't bring comfort. It didn't bring clarity. I was standing at the top of the stairs, barefoot, wearing this old, worn-out t-shirt, and there he was, at the bottom, just standing there. It didn't register right away. My brain stalled. It was like trying to look directly at something your mind refuses to understand. A tall man, still, staring up. No motion, no noise, just presence. The mask was the thing that pushed it into nightmare territory. Not some Halloween thing, not grotesque or theatrical, just blank, like he wanted to erase identity completely. I remember focusing on it like that might give me something to latch onto, but it didn't. It only made it harder to grasp what I was looking at. Everything felt too quiet, even my thoughts. It's weird how, in that moment, your body sort of decides for you. I must have made a noise, something between a yell and a broken exhale, and then, just like that, he turned, calm, no rush, opened the front door and walked out like he belonged there. Like I was the stranger, like I'd walked in on him. And the thing is, I didn't even move right away. I just stood there, still at the top, wondering if I was awake. For a second after he walked out the front door, I convinced myself it was done. I don't know why. I guess I wanted that to be the end of it. Some strange, inexplicable moment I could file away and never revisit. My knees were still weak, and I hadn't even processed the fact that I hadn't locked that door earlier. I rushed down the stairs, body buzzing, trying to do something normal. Close the door, lock it, make the world make sense again, and just as my fingers touched the deadbolt, it happened. The back door slammed. Not gently, not wind or pressure. It was sharp, fast, the kind of noise that cracks something inside you, that split second where your body knows something before your brain catches up. My stomach dropped. My legs just about gave out. I didn't see them. I never saw them. But I knew there had been someone else. I hadn't even sensed them, which is the part that really sticks with me. I keep going back to it. I'd been upstairs, lights on, moving around, making noise. They were in the house while that was happening. They were in the house while I stood there at the top of the stairs, staring down at the first guy. What if I hadn't made a sound? What if I'd gone down? I replay that over and over. I don't know what the plan was, if there even was one, but something about the way that second person slipped out, unseen, unannounced, chills me in a different way. I remember grabbing my phone, hands shaking so bad I could barely swipe the screen. I didn't know who to call first. All I wanted, more than anything, was for someone else to be awake, just there. I didn't sleep properly for a week after it happened, probably longer than that if I'm honest. I kept lying to myself, telling everyone I was fine, that it was just a freak thing, but every night felt like I was waiting for something to happen again. Like the house was holding its breath, right along with me. So I went to the hardware store, picked up a motion-activated floodlight and one of those cheap doorbell cameras with just enough battery life to make me feel like I was doing something, like I had control. It wasn't much, but it was something tangible. For a few days, I could breathe a little easier. Not completely, but enough to walk past windows without flinching. Every night, I'd check the app just to see the familiar stillness outside. No movement, no faces, no surprises. And it helped. I convinced myself I'd overreacted, that maybe they were just dumb kids, or desperate, or both. Maybe it really was over. But then the light didn't turn on one night. I walked past the back window and realized the yard was pitch black. No sudden beam of light, just dark. I checked the settings. Everything looked fine. And then I opened the app for the camera. Nothing. The battery was dead. No history. No recordings. Like the last 3 nights hadn't existed. I don't know if someone messed with it or if I just didn't set it up right. I keep bouncing between the two, trying to land on the less terrifying option. Still, the thought lingers. If someone was watching, if they had been planning this, they would have known exactly what to avoid. Or maybe I'm just spiraling. Maybe the fear never really left. I keep telling myself it's over, but deep down, I don't believe that. Not really.